I used to pick customers up after work. That's not the sort of thing you do if you're trying to be a safe dancer, and it's definitely not the sort of thing you do if you're trying to keep your license as a dancer, but it was a small town and there was no one else to date, and how else was I going to meet guys? So I used to pick customers up after work, and we would go to this little hotel on the top of a hill, and that hotel had a restaurant inside of it that was open 24/7. So we would go to this hotel. I don't know what kind of impression they were getting from me by, meeting up with me in a hotel, but there weren't many restaurants in town that would stay open after the bars closed, and I was always extremely hungry after work, extremely hungry and extremely tired. And so I would meet up with these guys at this hotel, and we would go straight to the little restaurant, and they'd buy me dinner, and I would talk with them throughout dinner, and I would try to just get a feel for whether or not we had any kind of a connection. It was a lot of first dates, basically. It was a whole lot of first dates with guys that I picked up at the club. And then after dinner, I'd thank them for their time, and I'd thank them for the meal, and then I'd turn around and go back home. I was always really, really hoping that one of those dinners I was going to find somebody that I was attracted to. And that didn't happen. By the time I met my husband, I did a rough estimate, a conservative estimate of just how many guys I had met and flirted with and spoken with in my career as a dancer before finally meeting him. 2,500. I had probably a rougher than usual time finding somebody that I was actually attracted to. It didn't work out very well for me. It was difficult for me. All of my friends growing up, like all my friends, they would see this guy and he was really, really hot, and then they'd see that guy and oh my god, he's so hot, and they'd see this guy and oh my god, look at his arms, they're so muscly, and I'd just be like, I couldn't make myself feel anything. I couldn't, and it was really frustrating. Like I didn't mean to be picky. And I know I probably came off as really picky to a lot of people, but I just couldn't make those feelings happen. You're supposed to be feeling all these things, and it didn't happen. And I remember my first boyfriend, I basically started dating him with the hope that maybe if I was, more physical, more affectionate, maybe if I slept with him, maybe those feelings would start to occur. And what ended up happening is I ended up breaking up with him, and he thought I was just the most heartless bitch ever. And I mean, I didn't mean to be heartless. I didn't feel anything, and I didn't necessarily realize that he was feeling anything, because I felt, just completely unattached to him, and I didn't really realize that he was going to feel any kind of attachment to me. But that's a different story. In the meantime, I would pick up different guys from the club and get a free dinner, which was always really nice. But mostly I was just looking for something and hoping I would find it. And so I had a lot of dinners in that little teeny restaurant, in that little hotel on the top of the hill. A lot of dinners. And most of the guys were pretty forgettable. There was one guy. I met him close to closing. He wasn't particularly interesting to me, but it was like, hey, do you want to hang out after the club closes? Yeah, why not? He wants to hang out with me. I want to hang out with him. Why not? And so he told me to meet him at this other bar that had some sort of little after party thing. And so the club closed. I drove over to this other bar. I met up with him. I don't really go to bars unless I'm getting paid to be there. Like, I don't really have a reason to be there. So I was there kind of just sort of hanging out awkwardly. And then they closed, and he asked me to come back to his house for like a movie. And I was like, oh, that sounds nice. At that point in my life, I didn't really get to go on, dates, in the sense that most people I think people have this idea that hanging out on the couch and watching a movie together is boring. And my life was kind of reverse of that. I was hanging out in the clubs all the time because I worked there. And, I guess you could say partying, only I don't drink alcohol and I don't do drugs. So basically I was just in the party atmosphere all the time, and that was fun. But there's something so amazingly wonderful about curling up on a nice warm couch and watching a movie with somebody else so that you're not all alone. And, you know, that's awesome. Like that was exciting for me. It's still exciting for me. I still do that with my husband because it's exciting to me. That was my idea of a fun time. And so he asked me to come to his house to watch a movie, and I'm like, you know what? He could be a serial killer, but a movie sounds good. Snacks in a movie, oh man, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it. He might not necessarily be the most interesting guy I've met, but, you know, let's try this out and see where it goes. So I guess sometime between the time that my club closed and that the after party at this other bar closed, he must have taken like a handful of shots or something. He got really drunk really fast, and his friends had to drive him home. And I followed them because, you know, we were still on to do this movie thing. And so I arrived at his house, and I got pulled over by cops on the way there because, you know, I was following another car, so they assumed I was drunk. And I was like, you know, it kind of annoyed because I was always getting pulled over by cops, and I was always like stone cold sober and yeah, whatever. But we finally got to his house. His friends dropped him off. I parked in front of his house. I went in. I saw this beautiful beige couch in the living room, which was like the front door opened into the living room. This beige couch, this TV, nice TV. I was like, okay, I can't wait to curl up on this couch. He's like, let's go to the bedroom. I was like, okay, we'll go to the bedroom. I'm not going to sleep with this guy, but here we go to the bedroom for whatever reasons. Maybe there's a TV in the bedroom. In fact, there was a TV in the bedroom, now that I think of it. He told me that there was another TV in the bedroom. That's the reason I went in. Yeah, anyway, so we're in this bedroom. And the bedroom is pretty much all bed. Like, the guy has the hugest bed I've ever seen. It was a king or some variation, like a California king. It was big. It was a mammoth-sized bed, and it was covered in a down comforter, which I did not notice until later. And, you know, he pretty much crawls into bed and he's done. He is really drunk. And so I just kind of looked at it and was like, okay, movie night is sort of out. And so, you know, I ended up peeling out of my clothes and climbing into bed. And I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, well, why wasn't I more chaste about it? It's like, I'm not going to go to bed in my jeans. That's not comfortable, you know, at all. And then I climbed into the bed, and let me tell you about this bed. He had a down comforter. The entire thing was like a gigantic pillow. I don't know how he did it, but it was like one gigantic, very soft and cushy pillow. It was like lying down on top of a cloud. He had bought expensive sheets. I don't know why, but he had invested in nice sheets. And so I kind of ease into this thing, and instantly my eyes start just sort of rolling back like, I'm losing it. I'm going to fall asleep. Like, barring food, the only thing I care about after work is sleep. And, you know, there it was, the world's most comfy bed. And, you know, let's contrast this to the bed I normally slept in. At that point in my life, I was sleeping in a cot. And I'm not saying, oh, it was a tiny bed. No, I mean, it was one of those little foldable cots with like the little pad that's about yay thick. And I had to pile quilts down on top of the cot, and then sit on top of the quilts, and then pile more quilts on top of myself because the cold would seep up through the bottom of the cot, and it would be so cold I wouldn't be able to sleep. I was staying in this place where the wind would blow, and you could feel the wind blowing through the wall. It was not necessarily, it was always cold. It was the middle of winter at that point. Everything was cold. Everything was covered in snow. It was just bitterly, bitterly cold. And I come into this guy's house, and not only does he have the heating cranked up to a comfortable level, which is, oh my God, so nice, but he has this bed that looks like, you know, some sort of puffy cloud of comforting softness. And like, I climbed into this thing and just, I mean, I fell asleep. Like, I fell asleep instantaneously. He had his side of the bed, you know, he had his side of the bed. I had mine. And there was plenty of room for me to, like, you know, stretch out and kind of... It was so wonderful. It was like the most amazing bed. I mean, this is also a very comfy bed, but that one was interesting. Like, it was a nice bed. I was out in no time flat. I woke up the next morning in this bed that feels heavenly. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just wanted to lie there for the rest of forever. And I lay there for a good long while, just, you know, just breathing and enjoying the feeling of not being miserable for a little while. It was amazing. But sooner or later I had to get up. And so, you know, I got up and I was alone in this super gigantic bed. Okay, all right. And I grab my clothes and I get my jeans back on and, you know, get my sweater back on and I get my coat back on and my gloves and all that stuff. And I grab my purse and I kind of start walking through the house and dude's not there. I have the entire house all to myself. He's just gone, which is a little weird and a little bit disappointing, but, you know, maybe he was hungover or so. Maybe it's all for the best. So I go to my car, which is like frozen solid. And I get in and I head home and that's it. You know, it was a complete bust as a date night, but at least it was a comfy bed. So, you know, I guess I sort of came out ahead on that one, you know, what have you. Several weeks pass. I don't really know exactly how long. I wasn't keeping track of the time. I really didn't give the guy another thought. It was like, that was a failed attempt at finding Mr. Right. Not that I was really looking for Mr. Right, but I was looking for, you know, a connection with another person, and that, no. So, you know, time passes, life goes on. One night I'm at the club and I'm trying to sell dances and I walk up to the bar and there's this guy at the bar and I walk up to him and I'm smiling. I'm like, hi. I'm thinking, buy a dance from me, you know, pay me your money. And he looks at me and he's like, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, oh shit. Because every once in a while, I'll meet a guy at the club and he will fall in love with me, or at least he'll think he fell in love with me. And then he'll be really upset when I don't remember him, you know, a few days or weeks or months later, because, you know, I meet so many people at the club. It's really hard to keep track of folks. And also, I'm not particularly committal at a club. Like when I'm at work, I'm in work mode and I am here to take your money. And I will be charming and I'll be sweet. I'll try very hard to entertain you, but I'm here to take your money. And so, you know, every once in a while, guys they'll be somewhat angry that I don't remember them. And I'm sorry, but this is a business. You know, this is my job. I'm not supposed to remember you. You're supposed to, you know, have a nice dance, enjoy the entertainment, and then go home. And, you know, it's a fantasy. So anyway, this guy says, you know, you don't remember me, do you? And all I think is, oh, crap. You know, I just got yelled at by another guy who was all upset with me for, you know, for not remembering him, which I need to tell you guys that story sometime. It's sort of funny. But, you know, here's another guy who's saying, you know, you don't remember me. Oh, crap. So I kind of looked at him and I was like, maybe if you tell me what we talked about, it could jog my memory a little bit. I'm really bad with faces, because it's true. I'm really, really horrible with faces. I'm really bad with names too. And he gives me this look of disgust and disappointment, and also just in terrible disappointment. And he's like, you do that sort of thing all the time, don't you? And I'm looking at him for a second, and all of a sudden it clicks in my head. It's like, you're the guy with the bed! I remember you! And so, you know, I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, you know, things are starting to click into place. It's like, okay, I remember you. I remember the bed. I definitely remember the bed. And now that I remember the bed, I remember you. And then the rest of it starts to click into place as well. Like, if you were a dude and you got blackout drunk one night at the bar and you woke up the next morning really groggy and hungover with a naked stripper in bed next to you, what would you think happened? Except that didn't happen. And so he's looking at me like, oh my God, you do this so much that you don't even remember me. And I'm looking at him like, Yeah, you were the guy that I tried to have a movie night with, and you just kind of passed out on me, and I didn't really think much of it, but you had a really nice bed. It was very comfortable. And so, I didn't really say anything to him because it took a while for everything to really fall into place. And by that point, he was just like, turning away from me, just really disappointed, really disgusted, kind of grossed out. And I'm imagining now this poor man like running to a clinic, like, quick, test me for every STD that you have. Like, I never thought anything of it because, I mean, it was supposed to be a date, and it ended up not being a date because he was too drunk and he passed out. Like, didn't pass out, like, just completely zonk into the bed, but I mean, he was really, really, slurring his words. There wasn't much going on, and he just fell asleep pretty quickly. So I was like, okay, this is not going to be a fun movie night for me. Didn't realize, I didn't realize what it looked like when he woke up in the morning with no idea what happened. Oops. So yeah, that was my supposed one-nighter with a customer. Just to be perfectly clear, sex was not had on that night. But I think I scared the poor guy. Like, I think he was genuinely upset. I think he was actually like a pretty nice guy who wasn't in the habit of having crazy one-nighters with strippers. And so, I strongly suspect that he was just horrified that he had wound up in bed with some girl that he didn't really remember that much, and she was a stripper on top of all that. I think if he knew the whole truth, it would be kind of funny, but oh well. The things that happen in strip clubs. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.